What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Blitz Fantasy Football. My name is Ryan Linkletter. Today, we are tackling 5 regression candidates heading into the 2025 fantasy football campaign. Our last 2 videos tackled the positives, 5 guys that we like at the receivers and the running back position that you guys need to be targeting in your drafts based on their current ADP. Now, these are players that I don't think are going to live up to their production during the 2024 NFL season and are a little bit overpriced at their current ADP. I am currently in a redraft dynasty league right now, ultimately trying to figure out which players I want to start my team with and go from there. It has been very difficult trying to navigate it through, and I've had to look at some of these busts and pass on them because I don't think they're going to be as valuable, even if their ages are young. They had a breakout rookie year, stuff like that. I think they're in for a down second year or, years into their NFL career. I want to start this list off with Buffalo Bills running back James Cook. Now, Cook clearly has a contract situation that needs to get resolved. He's currently not in Buffalo right now, participating in voluntary OTAs. We will see if he is there for mandatory mini camp and stuff like that in the coming weeks. We'll see what happens there. But Cook is asking for a contract extension. Last year, he had a career season, a ton of touchdowns to his name, averaged 15.7 half PPR points per game. But I am concerned more about, even if something gets done between the Bills and James Cook shows up and all this stuff, that he is not going to live up to the production he had in 2024. James Cook last season was in a 3 running back committee, and we saw Ray Davis ultimately show a little bit that he can earn some early down work as well. You have Ty Johnson, who is quarterback called the best third down back in the league. A little bit concerning if you're James Cook, who had a lot of viability as a pass catcher ahead of last season and still was hovering around that 50% snap share last year. The usage is down, which is not necessarily ideal by any means. And then you add on top of that he saw 30 fewer rushing attempts than the season before and 43.1% fantasy production coming on touchdowns. That is not necessarily something that you can continue to rely on as an RB1. And ultimately, James Cook is in a situation where if he doesn't score touchdowns, and look, I think James Cook will score touchdowns. His first 2 years, he didn't, but last year, the amount he scored is not sustainable. The Bills completely adjusted their scheme to where Cook got more touches within the goal line, but those will come down to a number between 8 and 10 for Cook heading into this year. Even if it isn't the number he had last year, a lot of his weeks relied on touchdown heavy production. And like I just mentioned, that 43% stat that relied on that production, James Cook was a top 12 running back because of it. Cook is being drafted right now right around that range of, RB10 through RB14. And I don't think it's worth it. I think Cook should be priced as a middle tiered running back too heading into the year. Ultimately, not necessarily going to live up to that insane touchdown production that he had in this last year. And that's why I'm fading James Cook. Not necessarily the contract thing, but it's the touchdown production that really, really has me worried with that regressing heading into this year. The second player is Brock Bowers. Now, this might surprise a lot of you guys, but Brock Bowers is very, very concerning for me. And I don't think it's necessarily that he's going to be in for a bad year, but I think the scheme is going to change. And he is nowhere near early second or back end of the first round pick, where a lot of people want to pick him right now. Bowers is a guy that enters with, Pete Carroll. He has Geno Smith coming over. You have Ashton Genty now in this offense as well. They drafted Jack Beck. So they added playmakers. This offense got better, but ultimately the red flags for me are the type of offenses we've seen Pete Carroll and Geno Smith lead, where it's not been very tight end heavy. You have, Bowers, who saw 153 targets last season. That is going to change heading into this year with a new quarterback situation. Obviously, they upgraded from Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew to Geno. Geno hasn't targeted the tight end that much, and his career nowhere near that number. I don't think a tight end has reached over 100 targets with Geno at the quarterback position. You add a running back like Ashton Genty, who is going to be a very, very key cog in their offense and expected to see over 300 touches. And then you obviously have Jacoby Myers there. Jack Beck was added. Bowers is still the number one option in this passing game. But with the lack of production from the tight end position throughout Geno Smith and Pete Carroll's career, it has me very concerned that Brock Bowers can see close to 150 targets this year, cash in on his current value. He should be more priced around a late second, middle third, right in that range. Instead, he's very overpriced right now, and I would highly recommend avoiding it because we really got last year where Brock Bowers was the main target on the Raiders. They were losing in almost every single game, so they had to throw the ball so much. That's not going to happen this year. The Raiders are going to have positive game scripts, and Bowers is going to be in for a little bit of regression heading into this year. Another player who had a breakout season similar to James Cook was Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield and Liam Cohen was an absolutely beautiful connection between these two. Mayfield was a monster, and he wasn't even drafted necessarily very early. I don't think. I think it was Browns like 11 to 15 to where Mayfield was going in drafts heading into last season. But Mayfield cashed in. He was a top three quarterback. He had massive touchdown production. He had really good passing volume as well. And in an offense where you have a lot of receiver changes, it was very impressive to see what Mayfield did. Ultimately, though, Mayfield is a guy that I'm very, very, very concerned about heading into this year. You lose your coordinator in Liam Cohen. You then also have a receiver situation, which seems like it's going to be very fluid and nice for Baker Mayfield. But ultimately, it is a little bit scary to see him be a touchdown dependent quarterback to where he relied heavily, heavily, heavily on his 7.2% of touchdowns on his pass attempts, and he never had a career high over 5.6. So that is going to regress. The receiver room is incredibly nice, and he did have a lot of rushing yards per game compared to where it was in his career. He was at 22 yards per game on the ground versus a career average around 14. I think with him being priced where he is above Mahomes is reasonable, but I think he should be more around the quarterback 8, quarterback 9 range, and you should not find yourself reaching on Baker Mayfield between rounds 7 to 8. And after that point, I think it makes sense, but I would not recommend reaching on Baker Mayfield. The talent's there. The offense coordinator change is going to cause some regression in this offense, but I don't think it's going to be the year for Baker Mayfield in 2025. Next player is Kyren Williams, running back for the Los Angeles Rams. And a lot of people love Kyren Williams. They were fading him last year, and Williams ultimately had a very, very nice season. Williams was a absolute volume hog for the Rams last year, playing at 85% of snaps, a majority of the games, and we never saw Blake Corum operate as that, second back, more in a RB1, RB1A type of scheme. It was more of the Kyren Williams show, and that was it. That didn't necessarily mean that Kyren Williams was a great player when he was on the field. We saw him last year ultimately really, really struggle in terms of explosiveness. Among 46 qualifying running backs, he ranked 44th in explosive run rate, 37th in missed tackle rate, 40th in yards after contact per attempt. Nothing about that screams that Kyren Williams has a safe job heading into the 2025 season. Yes, he is there. He's great in the goal line. I'm not going to even lie and deny that. Williams is great, but he's currently priced as an RB1. They drafted Jarquez Hunter, who was incredibly productive at Auburn. I really liked his tape. He's going to be interesting to see how much he's worked into this offense. I think he is going to play less than he did last season. He's not going to receive the amount of volume, and I think he could be around that 70% max type of snap share heading into the year. If your running back's inefficient and ineffective, it's something that needs to change. And I think the Rams are starting to work towards that direction, investing draft capital into that position in the last 2 drafts. And ultimately, I think Kyren Williams still remains the team's RB1. But if you're drafting him to be an RB1 this year, it'll be a mistake because he should be priced as a middle tier RB2 based on the regression because of his analytical stats. I think Williams is a big hit or miss guy heading into the year. Obviously, if he hits, he's going to be great on the goal line again. If he doesn't hit, the volume is just not going to be there for him to be viable at his current price. And then our final player, a very controversial one once again, it is David Montgomery of the Detroit Lions. I am willing to call my shot on this one. David Montgomery is not going to produce like he has the last 2 years in Detroit. We've seen him have 13 and 12 rushing touchdowns the last 2 years. He's been incredibly efficient and effective being a 1A, 1B tandem with Jahmyr Gibbs. We saw at the end of last season, David Montgomery gets hurt. Jahmyr Gibbs, what he could be as a bell cow running back. You can't deny that the Lions didn't see that and say, wow, look what we have in Jahmyr Gibbs as a bell cow. And they already knew what they had in him as a player. They got to see him as a full RB1. David Montgomery came back in the playoffs, wasn't necessarily super effective. And Montgomery relies on, being that short yardage back for this team, being a change of pace type back, a very different style of runner compared to Jahmyr Gibbs. They lose Frank Ragnow now on the offensive line due to his retirement. They also now they have Kevin Seitzer gone. I forgot about that as well. They also lose Ben Johnson as well. This team has a little bit of turnover that has me concerned about regression overall in the offense, but it also has me more concerned about David Montgomery. Montgomery relied on these wide open holes, running a solid gap scheme on this offense and relying on touchdowns over the past few seasons. ultimately this year, it's not going to be the same type of movement and overall offensive success that the team had under Ben Johnson, which makes me more concerned for Montgomery more than anybody on this Detroit Lions offense. Sure, he's not super overpriced, but he still is currently priced as a mid-tier RB2. He should be looked at as a late RB2, high-end, early round 3 type of player instead of where he's being priced right now. I do see the regression for Montgomery. As far as like Gibbs and the other players in the offense, I think they'll be fine. They're still incredibly talented over there. But I think Montgomery not being super talented, not being an explosive back, really relies on the players around him and the scheme around him to make sure he's solid in fantasy football. So I'm avoiding him heading into next season. Let me know down in the comment section below which of these players do you think are going to regress heading into the 2025 season. Make sure you hit that subscribe button for more Blitz fantasy football content, and I will catch you guys next time.